Hey, what's up? In this video, I'm going to compare the difference between State Farm agents versus an independent brokerage like myself. And I'm going to give you the pros and cons. I'm going to dive into the nitty gritty, the real pros and cons. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to tell you straight up major benefits, disadvantages, pros and cons. So let's dive into the video. All right, so most of you already know that I am an independent brokerage. Adelphia Insurance is an independent agency. I used to work for Farmers, so I'm very familiar with the captive, insurance world. And I'm going to break down the exact, very honest, very real pros and cons of doing, independent versus going State Farm. Or any other captive. This is just specifically to State Farm, but most captives are pretty similar to this. So let's dive into some of the pros and cons. I'm going to start with independent agencies because, obviously I am an independent agent. I can give you the best, pros, and I can tell you definitely the cons, and then we'll go into the State Farm one. So starting off with independent, let's go with the pros. Let's start off with the first things first. You own your agency. You own the brand. You own the actual entity. It is your brokerage. So if one day you wake up, you're like, I'm over this whole insurance thing, I'm done, I'm getting out, I'm cashing out, you could sell the business, you own your agency. So boom, owning your agency, that's major pro. The next pro is you get to brand your agency however you want to brand it. You can choose to be some big corporate vibe, or you can be like a Geico, Hippo, like one of those kinds of like insurance carriers, or you could go like the Veronica's and go the totally different direction with like targeting Hispanic community. So many different routes you can take it with branding that you can't do with a captive model because you're working under that franchise brand. Boom, branding. The next one here, obviously this is a very big one, is the flexibility with carriers and being able to shop around different rates. So obviously, as a broker, you have a bunch of different companies. You don't just work with one, you work with multiple companies. If your customer isn't happy with this company, boom, no worries. We'll shop it around. The flexibility of rates and companies, boom, makes your life a million times easier. It's gonna, keep the retention probably a little bit better than if you're just stuck with one quote, one product, that's it. The next one is compensation. You most likely, as an independent broker, some of these carriers have higher percentage commission that they pay out. I know that, State Farm, at least in California, from what I'm aware of from multiple State Farm agents that I talk to, their commission structure is lower and they get paid a lot lower on new business than we do, and even renewal business. There's sometimes ranges between 10 and 15%. We can get paid up to 18, even as some carriers up to 20, 22% commission on new business. And also life insurance. The life insurance commissions for State Farm agents is much, much lower. We make significantly larger commissions on life insurance if we do sell those products. Another big thing as a broker is you can charge broker fees. That's something State Farm agents cannot do at all. They can't charge broker fees. So as a broker, we have that ability to charge some broker fees and compensation. So compensation, boom, a little bit better. Broker fees, also, you can make more money. Okay, so let's go into the cons. There's definitely some major cons of being an independent broker. The number one thing that I've realized and recognized as an independent broker was starting up. The process of starting the agency itself was a massive pain, a huge headache. There was a lot of hurdles. I had to learn a bunch of things, get appointments, get direct, contracts with different carriers, not having access to all the carriers off the bat. So that is a major con. The actual starting up the agency requires a lot more work. Be prepared if you are taking that route. The next thing is working with the different companies. There is multiple processes. State Farm uses one system. They have one carrier. They have one underwriting department. They have one billing department. They have one of everything. As a broker, we're working with 10 different companies. That means we have 10 different processes for each individual company. Yeah, they're all probably pretty similar, but they are there are different processes. So you need to be prepared to build out your own processes and procedures within the agency to work with all the different companies, if that makes sense. The next thing is the guidance. There's very little guidance as an independent broker. Like there's no one there you can call up and be like, hey, how do I do this? It's like you're kind of just on your own. Like State Farm agents have the community of State Farm agencies, so they can talk to other State Farm agents. They're all kind of in the same boat. They know the same stuff. Independent brokers, we're all kind of out in the ocean on our own, working on different niches, different companies, and it's a lot less community in an independent broker world. So be prepared to just be a lone wolf and really have very few people you could talk to about how to do things. This is another massive con of the independent agency, and it's a pro for the State Farm, which I'll dive into later, but there is no book of business that you start with. You start with $0, 0 cents on the books. Unless you bought a book of business, then you're good, but you don't have anything to start with. State Farm does hook up those agents typically to get them going, at least a book to start servicing and work off of. Another big thing is there's not like these company bonuses that you receive as an independent broker. There are some bonus opportunities, but State Farm has a lot more bonuses, so there's less bonus opportunity. Okay, now let's talk about the State Farm pros. Okay, so the first pro, very, very obvious. The big thing here with State Farm, I think this is probably the largest pro in my opinion, is the deep branding of State Farm. Like, they are such a big company that their brand, so boom, huge branding. They have rapport already built. There's trust in the company, trust in the brand. People are just going to start calling. They literally will type in on Google like, hey, State Farm, and then they'll just get, opportunities purely just because the company itself is so big. That does not happen as an independent broker. You don't get those kind of opportunities unless you build that brand up on your own. The other massive pro for State Farm agents, if you do go the State Farm route, is they usually start you off with a book of business. Like, I think some get as lucky as getting even up to $1 million or more book of business that you could start with. That's automatic residual renewal commission that's coming in. Also opportunities to cross-sell off of, and that's a huge plus. I started with very little money. I actually went into debt the first year when I was in business, and then, had to build up that book instead of getting handed one off the start. Another huge one is the support, like the actual teams and the support system that State Farm has is very, very deep company support. You could talk to your State Farm reps that's assigned to your agency. You could talk to the underwriting department, billing department, probably people you start to get to know a little bit because there is, we're one company, one system. Also, just to touch on that point is the actual processes. You can really easily be in the dashboard and just click, let's cross-sell life insurance, let's cross-sell auto, let's cross-sell. In the independent world, you can't do that. So State Farm has a very clean, efficient process, probably a lot easier to scale that. So it's faster money up front and easier to build on the processes. Another huge one is their bonuses on life insurance. If you sell a certain amount of life insurance in a year, they do hand out these huge bonuses to agents, which are awesome. That's a massive pro. If you're a big life insurance producer, you can make those that money up front. Unlike you don't make as much commission on the front end, but they do give it to you on the back end with the bonuses. So there is great incentives there. Okay, this is one. Now let's go into the cons. The cons are for me pretty big here on the State Farm, in my opinion. So let's dive into them. I won't give you my biased opinion, but let's dive into some of these. So the number one con, in my opinion, is you don't actually own your book of business. If you one day just say, you know what, I'm over insurance, I don't want to do this anymore, you cannot go sell your State Farm agency. They will shake your hand and say, thank you so much, really appreciate everything you've done for us, and you walk away, unless you have some built-in invested interest, where I think that State Farm has some stuff like that, but you basically walk away with nothing. You don't really have any ownership in that book of business. Big con, in my opinion. The other big thing for me is you can't brand your own agency. Like, you have to really work under the marketing guidelines of State Farm. So the flexibility and the freedom of branding is not there, which I love as an independent broker. So that's definitely a big con on the State Farm side. Another huge one is the appetite that State Farm has. If State Farm says we're not writing homes in California anymore, that's it. You don't have any home opportunities in California anymore. If they're saying, hey, we're done with general liability in North Dakota agents, boom, no more general liability. You're at the mercy of this company. So whatever they say goes, and you can't really go and move your customer to another company and make commission. Massive con, in my opinion, as well. So those are the major cons, I would say. Like I said, that's why I'm making this video. There's pros and cons of both sides. To wrap it up, I would say that the grass is always gonna be greener on the other side. You will always look at the other side and be like, dang, that'd be nice if I had that. I look at State Farm agencies and I'm like, dang, I wish I had the branding. I wish I had that book of business to start with. All these different things that they get, those benefits. And then sometimes they look at me and they're like, dang, I really wish I could write that big commercial policy that they would never be able to write. So there's pros and cons, and overall, I was influenced to make my own decision to start a brokerage purely because of these are the three main things that really pushed me to take this route. And I'm not trying to push anybody. There's a good fit for everybody. I think State Farm is more stable. You will make a lot more money up front. And there's some great opportunities there. And if you want to go independent, there's a lot more work on the front end. There is, probably more money to be made in the long run at the end of the day with ownership and commissions if you do it right. But you have to make that decision yourself. So these are the three things that really pushed me to go on the independent broker route. Number one was the ownership of the book of business. I wanted to own this thing. I wanted to one day say, if I want to exit and sell this thing, grow it as big as I can and get a big chunk payout. That sounded cool to me. I would love to, have the ownership and sell one day. Like that's a great, cool vision one day. The other thing too is the flexibility of products. Working at Farmers for a few years, I started to realize that I wasn't really comfortable selling some of the products to my friends, family. I really wanted to have the flexibility. So having the flexibility in the products was a huge thing for me, and that pushed me in that direction as well. The last thing for me is the branding, being able to brand however I want, whenever I want, be on YouTube, be on TikTok, be on Instagram, be on whatever platform, and say whatever I want to say and not be censored was a big factor for me. State Farm agents have a lot of red tape they have to deal with. They can't say certain things. They can't be on certain platforms, so on and so forth. For me, I didn't like that restriction. I like the freedom. I like the flexibility. That's why I do these videos. They make me happy to help other agents. So that's pretty much it. I hope you got some value from this. There is no right answer here. State Farm has some massive pros, also has got some solid cons. Independents have awesome pros, and then there's definitely some cons that are a pain in the ass. And so I will say, make whatever decision you think is best fit for you, and know yourself as well, because, it's not for everybody. So hopefully that does help you. I hope I brought some value to you. If you do get any value from these videos, please give us a like, please subscribe. Really appreciate it. If you want to chat with me and you want to actually know deeper about my story or my opinion about this, hit me up on Instagram. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. DM me at Chris the Insurance Guy. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And that's all I got for now. We will see you guys at the top. Keep crushing. See you guys soon. Peace.